Live right now. Hello, Thursday night, 8 o'clock. It's time for Across the Pitch. I am Mike Barrera. I am here with my best bud from across the pond, Dave, at Dave GFC Miller. Dave, how the hell are you doing tonight?
I'm good, a bit buzzed, so I'm looking forward to it.
We have been amped for the show all day. We got the good sign of Bueno coming to the Union. So there's a lot to talk about. We're just going to get right into this with the news and notes for the week. First and foremost, to start the week, we had a bit of, good but sad news. The Jamaican team, unfortunately, were not able to advance in the Gold Cup, but that does mean some good news for the Union. We get Powell back, we get Burke back, but most importantly, we get Andre the Brick Wall back in that, which I am absolutely ecstatic for. Dave, your thoughts knowing that Andre is going to be between the goalposts this week?
It's a huge sort of confidence boost, I think, for that Union defence. I mean, obviously, people say it's not a big difference when a new goalkeeper comes in, but for those defenders that stand in front of them, it means a lot that you have that trust, you have that belief, you have that connection with a goalkeeper as good as Andre Blake, whereas, no disrespect to Matt Freese, you're perhaps not as confident with him in goal, so you're a bit more nervous at the back, you don't want to make as many mistakes, you don't trust him as much with the ball, and it sort of leads to more like uncomfortability at the back, which we've seen plenty of since Blake went to the Gold Cup. But I mean, it's huge for the Union. Hopefully, it can sort of push us in the right direction.
Yep, Rich, appreciate you chiming in. Rich, we'll have him on the show soon. Hopefully, he's the best soccer bettor that I know. So definitely looking forward to talking to him. But yeah, I was listening to Dupe on the River Pods yesterday, their show last night. And I think it was Zach on the show mentioned, he's like, the back four does not look good right now compared to they were before Andre left. And it's like, well, you'd think you'd play better in front of a weaker, netminder, maybe, playing more secure, maybe trying to protect him more. But it feels like it's been the opposite. I feel like they've actually been playing worse since Freese and Bendick have been in net. So I'm looking forward to having, him back there with some leadership and just, getting this train back on the tracks. But, yep, of course, man, I appreciate it.
No, as you were saying,
one of the bad... Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, as you were saying, obviously, they've looked more nervous without him with that Freeze. But it's that familiarity, that comfortability of having a guy behind you that you know that you can trust and you can somewhat, in your head, you feel like, okay, there is a room. Obviously, you don't make a mistake, but you know, like, okay, if I do make a mistake, we've got a guy there who's going to sweep it up and clean up the mistake, or we've got a guy behind us that we can trust. And I think that is made a huge impact on this team at the back, especially. They've not looked as confident. Obviously Freeze is somewhat, no disrespect to Freeze, but he has essentially backed up that lack of confidence without Blake, because he's not exactly performed well. I mean, the goal he conceded against Inter Miami wasn't great. We'll discuss that game in a little bit, but the goal he conceded was a poor one, which he should save. But yeah, things are a little bit disjointed since Blake's been gone.
And a lot of people who don't know soccer would think, oh, the goalie's just kind of standing there doing his thing, waiting for the ball. But no, the goalie is very much the vocal leader of the defense at times. Somebody's
Yeah,
often giving commands, telling where to go, orchestrating the defense from his side of the field. So maybe Freese isn't doing that. Maybe Bendick isn't offering the same leadership as Andre is. And the players have said before, time and time again, Andre is a vocal leader as well. You may not think
yeah,
it because he does seem kind of quiet, but he does, especially this year. Jim has mentioned how important he's been for the locker room, both on and off the field. So I'm really excited to have him back. Burke obviously was when he left Philly for the Gold Cup, he was playing pretty well. We saw
yeah,
him against Columbus, having a good game. He had obviously the goals against Chicago. So it's nice to have another striker or another forward on the bench, or at least starting, because Santos and Casper can't do it all.
no,
But some of the unfortunate injury news that we heard was about Alvis Powell. He did have a slight hamstring injury. They said it's minor. Jim mentioned today on the press conference he's probably going to be out for 2 weeks. Fortunately
yeah,
for the Union, this isn't a really detrimental injury because he's not
no,
part of the starting line. But you want to see everybody healthy, especially going into Mexico in a couple
exactly.
weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But
frustrating. I was gonna
yeah,
say
go
it's a
ahead.
bit frustrating because we haven't really seen Powell at 100% fitness. We haven't really seen him at his best. I mean, obviously he played against Chicago, but those were horrible conditions. Struggled a bit, but it was his first proper game that he's probably played in about 6 or 7 months. He's gone off to the Gold Cup and he's got minutes in the tank. He's come back here and unfortunately he's injured. So I mean, again, it's probably another frustrating blow for the Union of what continues to stack up of injuries as things continue to get more frustrating in the last few weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And in 2 weeks from now, you have the CCL match. So you're hoping that by the time you get there, you don't have to worry about it all, and
Yeah.
and he'll be back sooner, rather than later. But another injury news that we have, some positive news. However, something that Jim touched on today, Anthony Fontana and Jack DeVries could potentially see availability on Sunday, at least within the near future. I know Jim mentioned Jack possibly getting some minutes with the U2. Can you talk about what the importance that is for the depth, as well as just having these young guys healthy again?
Um, I mean, obviously, speaking of the depth, it's huge. You've got more midfield options. I mean, obviously, DeVries been out for a long, long time, so he's not going to be up to match speed, he's not going to be up to match fitness. I mean, to get a player like Fontana back, okay, he's not, he's not been as perhaps influential as people had banked on this year. People probably thought now, um, Brendan Aaronson's gone. This is his chance to, make the next step forward and become a much more important, bigger player. Obviously, it's not happened. He's had a concussion. He's perhaps not, as I said, he's not, and obviously you've alluded to before, he's not been as positive and as creative on the board as he was last year, as
Right.
more confident or like taking as much risks. So, I mean, yeah, I think obviously it's a big setback for Fontana, but it's great to get him back and hopefully get him firing again with all these new midfield and all these new options for him to sort of gel with and perhaps give him more space and time to do what he does best.
Well, the unfortunate part for Fontana is that in his absence, the younger players have been playing pretty well.
Yeah,
And now you add Bueno in, which I'll talk to about in a second. So you have a new midfielder coming in from loan. You have
yeah.
Quinn and McGlynn playing well. You've seen Paxson now a couple times. Where does
Gazdag.
Gazdag has now been part of the starting lineup. Where the hell do you put Fontana? Does he even crack into the subs when
Yeah,
you have these guys playing so well? It's unfortunate that when you lose your spot because of an injury, but that's kind of what happened. You had Fontana go down. It gave the opportunities to Sullivan and McGlynn, and they've done pretty well in that short time that they've had. But the big news today was a signing of Jesus Bueno. It's official now with the Union. He has a 2.5-year contract with a club option for a third and fourth year. He was the captain for Deportivo Lara, where he's been at since he was 18. So he's had 3 years of that club. Ernest talked about the versatility and the leadership aspect of it, having a captain of that age coming into this midfield, into this depth. What are your thoughts on the Bueno signing?
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and sing his praises and be like, "Oh, he's a fantastic player." Acting like I've watched him play 100 times because I haven't. Admittedly, I think it's for 99% of the Union fans. When he does play, I presume he'll play next weekend because is his visa sorted? I'm not entirely
No,
sure
I
if the
think they
visa
get the
sorted.
visa still situated. Yeah, from what I read from
Yeah.
Brotherly Game.
So obviously, as soon as you get that sorted, so he won't be available for a couple of weeks. Hopefully, it could be the perfect scenario. He's available on the bench for the Club America game. But I mean, for the Union, it's another option. It's another player who has had experience in a top division. Obviously, it's not the most prestigious division in Venezuela, but it's another player, it's another option for them to use in that team. Obviously, if players
Right.
like Martinez get injured, obviously Bedoya's having a slump, or Flark gets suspended or something like that, there's another player for them to bring in instead of them having to sit there and tell 17 and 18-year-old Quinn Sullivan and Jack McGlynn, pressure's on you boys, it's all on your shoulders, now go carry us.
Right. I think there's kind of two ways to look at this. One, it helps your team immediately. It gives you a leader. One of the biggest things, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought Glesnes was a captain of his team back in Norway before he came here.
Not a clue.
If that's correct, then you have Ernest looking for leadership, not just ability, not just playmaking skills. He's looking for leaders that are out in the world playing soccer. So that's great to have someone who his team trusted to lead them. Hopefully he can bring the same leadership to the midfield here. But this could be a 4-year contract. So now you're looking at it from the future perspective. Jose Martinez has been getting some attention now, especially after he had a strong performance in the Copa America tournament. So what if Martinez goes? Who comes in then to replace him? You have now another Venezuelan come in who's got a lot of promise. He's young. At the same time, we've mentioned Bedoya, and we'll talk about Bedoya a bit as well. This episode is you don't really see a lot from him anymore. You need to start planning for his slow departure from the starting lineup. So could this be a step in that direction? I think so for sure. What do you think about that, the future side of it?
Absolutely, I think it's huge. As we alluded to, he's 21. He's had plenty of experience already. So it's not only just a player that we can look towards the future. It's an immediate fix now, and sort of in essence, he's a player that can come straight in and make an impact. I mean, regarding the future, as you said, though, it's great to have another leader in that team. Where obviously you said a couple of years down the line, Jose Martinez can end up playing in Europe. Bedoya may end up hanging up his boots and retired. You've then got someone like Bueno, who's as you alluded to, who's potentially got a 4-year contract, can come straight into this team, and essentially, you're not. I mean, it sounds harsh. If he's a good player, I mean, as Ernest believes he's a good player who can make a difference, it would seem like players like Bedoya and Martinez won't be missed. In a sense that if Bueno can come straight in and make an impact, not just with them in the team, but down the line if they do move on. I'm excited to see what we can do. I think obviously it's a different kind of player. I presume he's a different kind of player to Martinez. I haven't seen the highlights. He's a bit more. He's obviously a hard-hitting player, but he's a lot more creative on the ball than Martinez is. So, I'm very excited to see what we can do.
Well, you mentioned the thing about, it's kind of harsh to say they're not going to be missed, but that's what you want from a successful franchise. You want to have, like, for example, the San Antonio Spurs have been successful for 2 decades, because they were able to replace the people that they lost. I mean, granted, people like Tim Duncan or Hall of Famers, you can't replace that, of course.
Yeah.
But you can replace the supporting cast and continuously have the same system, the same type of players in. So this is what you want to see from Tanner. You want to see him planning for the future early, because you'd rather find out now than later when Bedoya is on his last leg and Martinez is already gone and everything is basically falling apart. So I'm really excited to see that he's getting a head start on it all, which is great. Another big rumor that's been going around has been Davo coming from, I believe it was Corinthians, and he's a Brazilian striker who's would essentially be our 4th option. Maybe 3rd or 4th option. I think I sent you his highlight reel. Have you been able to see it, or what are your thoughts on his possible signing with the team?
I mean, obviously, I think it's a loan, isn't it? It's meant to be a loan with the option to buy. I mean, obviously, it's an interesting. I mean, obviously, he's 20 years old. I think he's playing in the 2nd division of Brazil. He's playing for because obviously he played for the Guarani, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
That's what, and he started off his career with them. Corinthians signed him and essentially led him straight back to them. So he's still playing at that sort of level. So I think at this moment in time, it could possibly be for him a Union 2 job whilst also playing a role with the first team. I don't know if that's how you view it, but I think I won't judge him. I mean, obviously, you want to see some positive sort of spells, some positive results from him, but I'm not going to essentially judge and write him off if he struggles.
Yeah, I think he's kind of just that spark plug option that you're going to have on the bench. I watched one of his highlight reels, and one of the things that stood out to me the most was he's very physical. He's not afraid to get hit. He's not afraid to to create contact himself, which is great, which is what you want to see. And
Yeah.
you already get that from Burke. You get that from Santos. So if you get it from him as well, you kind of have three guys who can really force their way into it. Granted, he's not as big as Santos, but still, he's going to create some
Yeah.
havoc. Some of his finishes weren't fantastic, but one of the things that I noticed the most was that he was facilitating fairly well. He had some excellent passes to his teammates.
Yeah.
They weren't able to finish the job, but someone like Casper, someone like maybe Santos or Burke, if they receive that great pass, then they're
Yeah.
the ones who can finish it. So I think Casper could benefit from this the most. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, as you said, I mean, if you get a player in there who can create as well as score, that's going to be huge. I mean, it then also takes the weight off the shoulders of players like Montero, Bizo,
Yeah.
Gazdag, takes the weight off their shoulders if there's another player in that team who can also create. Obviously, I'm not going to say I've watched this guy play. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, he's the greatest 20-year-old who's ever come from Brazil. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't have a clue. I've never watched him play. But I mean, it's positive. It's positive, risk-free signings for the Union. Where if they're going into areas that they know they've had success before, and again, if they're hoping they can hit again, I mean, it's all risk-free. I'm looking forward to see if hopefully both signings can pay off and they can play a huge part down the line as well as now.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's a low risk, high reward. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, then that's fine. Let's move on. And we've talked about this before. Tanner does have a good track record up until this point. So I have all the faith in the world that even if he just hits on one of them, he's going to hit, and it's going to be a good player for hopefully a couple of years. So I'm excited to just have them on board. I'm excited to see something different. We've talked about this before the season started. How confident can you be in a bunch of teenagers? You really can't. I mean, yes, they can create moments. They can have big games, but at the end of the day, they are still teenagers. They are still going to make young mistakes. So it's exciting to have a little bit more experience, though they're not much older, a little bit older with some more leadership skills, hopefully to help with this depth on the franchise or on the roster rather. But we have a lot of games to talk about this week. We have four games to talk about total. So the first game I want to talk about is the Orlando game. The Union, unfortunately, were not able to pull off a win against one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. You and I watched the game together. What were your thoughts from during the game and after the game?
I mean, obviously, we discussed it a bit on the post-game show last week. I mean, obviously, frustration was the one thing. It was a really weird game. I mean, obviously, the Union weren't great. They weren't the most amazing. There wasn't one of the most amazing Union performances. But the one thing that impressed me was their confidence on the ball, that they were able to pass the ball around the back and get out from the back with confidence. They were able to get themselves out of sticky situations. That was one thing that I took positive out of that game. And then you look further up the field with the lack of chances they created until Kasper scored, essentially. They didn't really do much in the attacking areas, which is what frustrated me the most. And it sort of reminded us, as we both mentioned, of the Nashville game. It was sort of a carbon copy of the Nashville game in that sense, where they got the ball in good areas, the final pass was crap, or the cross into the box was rubbish, or there was a shooting opportunity, but they then elected to turn around and pass it or lose the ball. It just felt like the Nashville game up in the final third. That was the biggest frustration for me, was their lack of killer instincts in that final third to get that final ball cracked, get that shot away. That's what I think. That's my overall thoughts on that game. I don't know if you agree with that or.
No, I do, and Zach alludes to what we talked about too. The Bueno, possibly being a replacement for Ali. So I guess let's kind of talk about Ali now that he's been brought up.
Yeah.
Orlando game, Miami game. We'll talk about Miami as well. From what we've seen so far from Bedoya, is he's gassed. He doesn't have the same connection that he's had with Mbaizo early on in the year. Some of the passes that he's had were just frustrating, to say the least. I thought, if you're going to compare the two games, I thought he played worse against Orlando than he did against Miami. I thought he played okay against Miami. And I say okay lightly. I didn't think he was fantastic. But Orlando, he had some passes that were just frustrating, absolutely frustrating.
Yeah.
And I asked Jim this week at the press conference after the Miami game, I asked him, I said, we aren't completing these passes. There seems to be a lack of communication. And
Yeah.
and Jim mentioned that the team is pressing too hard. They're trying to they're trying to push too hard, and therefore they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, which and as a result makes them run much more than they have to in the hot Florida weather.
Yeah.
Now that you've had a couple days to think about the games, what do you think of Bedoya right now in the starting role, or just as a part of this unit as a whole?
I mean, obviously, I've tweeted about it a couple of times. We've discussed it. He needs to run the games on the bench. If it's 2, 3, 4 games on the bench, he needs just to sit back, relax, and just have a bit of time just to recuperate himself, because he's knackered. He's run himself into the ground. If you compare all the minutes that Union players have played this season, I'm convinced he has played in pretty much almost every single game bar one
The
or two.
Chicago game was the one. I mean, he was hurt after he
When
hurt
he
his
was
hamstring.
hurt.
Yeah.
And did he play against New York City? Because obviously that was before the
Yes,
Atlanta game.
he
Did he
played. That
play
was a
it?
game. That was a game that Jose got taken off, and I'm fairly
Which game
certain
was it?
Bedoya was in the game. NYCFC, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a good look at this, but I mean, he's better. I mean, obviously for a 34-year-old, I mean, we said on the podcast last week. I mean, obviously Jim Curtin's done a fantastic job, but his man management and his handling of Bedoya has been terrible. For 34-year-old, he's pretty much essentially running into the ground at the point where he's knackered now. I mean, to play almost 90 minutes in both games in a hot Florida, in the middle of the summer, for a man that's 34 years old at the end, coming towards the end of his career, is just ridiculous.
Well, so one of the things that I noted, and I was trying to pull up my report from the Orlando match to make sure I got this correct. Bedoya came off on the 89th minute for McGlynn, and then shortly after, they lost the game. But you wonder, why is Jim waiting until the 89th minute to get rid of
Yeah,
Bedoya? He was removed earlier against Miami, but
yeah,
one of the biggest issues we've had recently is they look so stagnant on offense.
yeah,
And then you put these young kids in, and then it's like a spark goes off. Either they're trailing in the game, or they just look like their backs against the wall, and then they get put in, and it's just a huge adrenaline rush to the lineup. What have you seen from McGlynn and Sullivan? What do you think is the difference? Why is it so obvious that these guys are playing at a better tempo than Bedoya?
obviously they've got fresh legs. They haven't played much this year, so they're obviously keen. They've shown they're keen. They're keen to make an impact. They look hungry. They look fearless. Then again, they've got pace. They're quick players. I mean, I mentioned it to you when Sullivan played a little part, and don't know what game it was, but he came on. He had a couple of short sprints and showed some pace. But they're quick. They're pacey. They're fearless, and this is what this Union team lacks at the moment. In one going forward, we saw with Sullivan against Orlando. Immediately was in the middle of things, having shots at goal.
He had 3 shots.
Causing issues. 3 shots, exactly. He came on and was just causing issues as soon as he came on. And you didn't see that from any other Union player across that game. Shabirko, had his shot, which went in. But then, I mean, obviously had Shabirko's goal. But apart from that, no one else in that team created anything. Then you look in the Inter Miami game, where again, they looked like they were struggling going forward. Then you bring Quinn Sullivan in, and there's that spark straight away. They look more energized. And you bring McGlynn in as well. They look more energized. They look like they're players that want to do something on the ball. And as soon as Sullivan comes on, quick little 1-2, he's in behind, uses his pace, ball across goal, smartly worked, Union back level. And it's that penetration of the defence, and that, do you know what I mean, that fearlessness to, do you know what, if I make a mistake in this final third, or if I try something risky and it doesn't pay off, okay, who cares? Because the Union at the moment are trying to play simple, but even around the final third, or they're playing scared around the penalty area, and it's still not paying off. I think there was a one moment where they were inside the penalty area and they could have played the ball across the goal. And I think Shabirko in the end decided to run out the box and play out wide instead of just going towards goal. And just sat there thinking, what is wrong with this team's confidence? It looks shot.
So Sullivan looks one of the most confident players we have on the roster. I remember he comes in, and I'm looking at the report right now. So he comes in, he has a shot on goal on the 70th minute. And I remember the ball was kind of ricocheted back and forth. It found him at the top of the box, and he just sends a low-flying shot right at Galisi, who made a great save. Again, his next shot was only 5 minutes later. He takes a good shot, and it gets cradled in by Galisi. But again, it was another moment where you're testing the keeper. We went from basically just letting him have a night off to harassing him over 15 minutes. And then his final shot was towards the end when it struck the I think it was Smith in the face.
Yeah,
He's put himself in these great positions, and he just looks so confident.
yeah,
And it's like night and day when you see the two. And McGlynn, so I had another press conference I was a part of. I also spoke to Jim, and I asked him about McGlynn. I said, what are you seeing from these young guys? And I was a bit surprised. I mean, like we've talked about Jim having, I guess he's complimentary of these young players, but
yeah,
he never says anything that's too like over the top. He doesn't try. I would say he doesn't try to kind of inflate their ego a bit, but I thought he
no,
said something pretty amazing about McGlynn. He compared him to Harris Medunian, which we all know, was a great facilitator. He had a great
yeah,
left foot. He said, "I see McGlynn compared to Harris in terms of the IQ and his left foot." And I
yeah,
thought that spoke volumes for a kid who's just a teenager, and
yeah.
he showed that again against Miami with his left foot. What have you seen from McGlynn? And maybe not as impactful as Quinn, but he's played great.
I mean, yeah, obviously, again, it's a fearlessness that try and make something happen. I mean, as we alluded to, just as you alluded to just then, that obviously the Sullivan chance that was headed off the line.
Hmm.
That chance never comes if McGlynn is the first man to get to the rebound off Jack Elliott's shot and cut the ball straight across goal. I mean,
Exactly.
it was that instinct to be, I'm going to be the first one to get to that ball. I'm going to be the first one to get there. And then against Miami, where obviously he had the ball, he got the ball out wide instead of dilly-dallying with it, playing it back and going around in circles like the Union have done. He said, "Screw it, I'm going to put dink a ball in the box and see what happens." Gets it across to the back post where Shabirka's own marks,
Yep.
and obviously the Union have a good chance from it. I mean, he's having an impact on this team, even though he's playing little minutes. He's having a good impact in positive attacking moments, which other players that we're so used to haven't.
Yeah, I agree. My brother bought me this shirt, by the way. It's one of my new
Nice.
favorite Union attires that I have, which we all know I have too big of a collection. I don't have any. I don't have any more room for my stuff anymore. It's actually kind of nuts. But no, so the McGlynn note, I love the pass that he put to Casper, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna kind of tie in the Miami game now a bit with you because we kind of talked about Orlando. So I want to talk about Miami and what I saw online was people saying, "Here's Casper not playing well again. He's not doing anything again." What did you see from Casper? Because he continues to maybe not be fantastic all match, but he
yeah.
finds a way to score a goal. So what did you think from Casper in the Miami game as well as the Orlando game?
I mean, these probably weren't his two best games. He didn't really do much in the actual games itself.
Yep.
But again, he found the back of the net, which is all you can ask for from a striker, and which is essentially why he's in this team. He's in the team to score goals. That is his primary role. Obviously, Jim likes him to do other things, but Casper is the main guy. That's the guy that they sit there and go, "Okay, Casper, we need a goal. We need you to go and get a goal," and he does it. He can do it. He can score from one chance, which is what is so big about this team, which is why he's so important to this team. Is that even if players like Burke aren't firing or Santos is struggling for form, they know that Casper, if put in the right place, will score or he will correct test the keeper.
Well, that's the thing. He does fire often, which is what you want to see from a good striker. You want to see him in position to score or at least put a shot on net. We saw the goal in Orlando. Mumbizo puts a brilliant pass to him on his right foot, and he just one times in the net from 19, 20 yards out. I mean, that's a hard shot to take. Most players will send that flying off to the above the net to the side of
Yeah,
for the corner. He drills in the back of the net, easy. And then you come to the Miami game. The Quinn Sullivan comes in. The team has life, and he just barely gets his leg on the goal line. He
yeah,
scores a goal. And it's like he just always finds a way to score. And I agree. I mean, sometimes Casper does stop running at times. He does seem a bit sluggish, but you asked Jim about the set pieces. Casper is involved in set pieces specifically, and
yeah.
he's always in the right place at the right time. So I can't complain too much about him. Now I have a question in terms of the pairing. Who do you think betters his skill set, or who do you think pairs better with him, Burke or Santos? Because I feel like Santos and him work great together, but then
Yeah,
Burke
I
has
think
been also really good. What do you think of those two, or what are the pairings?
I think Santos fits him better in the sense that he's a more different player to Shabirko. So it's sort of like you have the bigger, taller guy who's going to be the big muscle man who's going to win the ball in the box and win headers. As suppose then you've got Santos, he's smaller, he's quicker. Which obviously, when you're going to play with two strikers, you prefer to have a big man and a little man that can do two different things. But as you said, I mean, him and Burke also works quite well nicely. They both can do similar things, but they both have their own different styles of play. But I think personally, for me, I think if I'm a manager, I think him and Santos works better as opposed to him and Burke.
Yeah, I agree. I saw it on the DC match. Him and Santos play well. The match was really calling for Santos in Miami. And as soon as he comes in, it's like, you see the immediate impact, and Casper kind of comes to life a bit too. But in terms of those two games, one of the biggest things for all Union fans was that Ilsinho finally came into a match, and it was against the Inter Miami, and he came in as a right back, which I thought was bizarre, but I kind of loved it. What did you think about that?
I mean, I think I was shocked to see. I mean, I think I said to you, "Oh Lord, he's playing at right back." I mean, we're so accustomed to seeing Ilsinho playing in the 10 out wide as a winger. So I mean, it was a bit of a shock. But I mean, again, he played well when he came on. He made some nice passes, some good runs. So I mean, I think him coming in was just about perhaps not giving the team a spark, having him provide the spark on the team, but just to lift the players in the team. Like, okay, he's back. One of our key players is back.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got someone else that we know who can create something. And I think it did it. That also gave the team a spark. Obviously, it's great to see him back and get minutes, especially.
Well, so I'm going to talk about the spark with Ilsinho in a second. Zach mentioned Sergio and Corey a little bit. Now, I agree. I think the pairing with Sergio and Casper worked better. But do you think Sergio should just stay on the bench and have the consistent spark rather than being there for the 80, 90 minutes or
well,
less?
I mean, no, I think he should. Personally, I think he should start. Because I mean, if you're playing a team that's quite slow at the back and quite slow in defence, then you've got that quick, pacey guy who can stretch the game. And I mean, obviously, he can look great off the bench. Obviously, the New York Red Bulls game, he was great off the bench there.
Yep.
But I mean, sometimes you need to have the quicker striker. And if a team lacks pace in the game against a slower team, you might be okay. Well, they match up well. But if you have that extra guy with pace, and then it adds a bit of cautiousness to the other team. They don't want to attack as much. They don't want to perhaps press as high because they know if they go higher up the pitch, then someone like Santos is going to be on the shoulder waiting for the long ball forward, which we saw against DC United with the Union's winning goal. Was
Right.
that DC United pushed everyone forward and forgot that Santos was quicker than everyone else on the pitch and got in behind everyone. And if you start players, that's what he offers when he starts. That's why I think I'd prefer him to start and perhaps come off. But I mean, it's a toss-up really between him and Burke.
Yeah, you have to feel the game out. How like I said, we talked about the Miami game in particular. Their pace was so slow. The game was screaming for Santos because you needed someone who could just pick it up and kind of boost that offense because they weren't going to score a goal with what they had on the pitch. So I agree. I mean, we've a lot of players or a lot of teams, rather fans. I'm sorry, a lot of fans have said they miss Fafa Picault, who was on the bench. He was kind of that spark plug. He was fast. He provided something that Santos provides in terms of the speed, being able to stretch the field. So I can see both sides for sure. But Ilsinho, going back to him, we know from watching Jim's system, the left and right back play such an important role on the offensive end, and you have Ilsinho now pushing up, and you have to put at least a man and a half on him. You can't just let him be by himself one-on-one because you saw what happened to him when he's a one-on-one. He can just blow right by somebody. With the crowded midfield, do you think we see more of Ilsinho at right back, or do you think that was just for the lack of depth we had this time?
I think it might have been for the lack of depth that the team had. And I think obviously Barza didn't have the best of games. So, I mean, it was probably Jim's way of saying we can get you on the pitch. It might be out of position, but you're going to get minutes in the tank. So I think that was probably the main reason why he played the right back.
I think one of the issues we had last season, so we had, 2 years ago, Ilsinho was the super sub. He was unstoppable. He was one of the best subs in all of MLS. And then you saw the other teams kind of starting to figure out how to defend him, push him to a certain side, double team him, and he's essentially not really too much of a factor. So I want to see him get some more minutes, but I don't want to see what happened last year happen again. And at the same time, with players like McGlynn and Sullivan playing so well, how much time are you going to see from Ilsinho, especially with someone
Yeah,
who is older and who may, who's already had injury problems this whole year. So I'm just happy to have him back. I think he brings a great spark off the bench, and it's excited to
absolutely.
see him. Any other thoughts though about Miami before we get into the previewing these two
Um,
big matches?
no, I mean, obviously, I was just going to quickly allude to Orsino. He's 35 years old, and he's in that
Yep.
same bracket as Bedoya, who's probably on his way out, and he's a player that perhaps you can't rely on week in, week out, which obviously you perhaps could have done 5, 6 years ago. Which
Yeah,
again, yeah, I might add on to that.
I agree. Moving on, we'll go to talk about the Chicago game. So I just brought up the sports book on Chicago versus Philadelphia. The home team, Union, are -150. The Fire at +340. Unfortunate, the Chicago Fire fans out there, Corey Burke should probably be back.
Yeah,
And we know Corey Burke actually torches the Fire. No
loves to
pun
score.
intended. Yeah, so I would say this is a must-win home stretch. How would you
Yeah,
feel entering these two home games here?
I agree. They have to win these games if they want to carry on near the top of the Eastern Conference. They have to win these 2 games. You can't come into this game off the back of of these 2 games at least with nothing less than 4 points. You have to get 4 points in these 2 games.
So if you were to tie one of these matches, who do you tie against? Who would you be okay coming up with a draw? Because I don't want either personally, but
No,
I mean, if you had to pick between the two, if you're comfortable with four, then who do you think they struggle against
I mean
more?
I think Toronto might be the one. I mean they've had some good form in the last 4 games. They've got some good point. They've obviously beat New England. They got a good point against Orlando, and obviously they've just come off a road win in Chicago, and obviously they've got a game against Nashville. So if they end up avoiding defeat to Nashville, they haven't lost a game in 5 games. They'll be coming into the game with a bit of form, bit of confidence. You think, okay, if the Union can play some good stuff and get a result, maybe it's
Yeah,
not too bad.
I'm looking at Toronto's schedule right now. So they have a game against Nashville on Sunday, about the same time as we do, and then they come to Philly on Wednesday. So
Yeah,
both teams have the same amount of rest. Toronto obviously traveling, so that's a bit more difficult. But yeah, if you look at the table right now, so the Union are currently in fourth. They have 24 points. They are tied in points with Columbus, but they are in the fourth spot on the table.
yeah,
Orlando is 25 points. They're in third. Nashville, who's been really
yeah,
underrated, honestly. Like I watched them play against Cincinnati,
yeah.
and Sapong just had himself like a freaking match. He was awesome. But they're tough at home, man. You don't want to play Nashville in the playoffs
No,
at home. No way. You're not going to come out of that with a win. And then you still have the Revolution at 33 points at the top of the table. So Chicago is currently in the 13th spot. They have 12 points. Toronto is not too far ahead of them in the 11th spot. They also have 13 points. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Chicago has 12. So you have two teams coming to Subaru Park at the bottom of the table. I don't think this fan base is going to be very accepting if you draw
no,
one of these matches.
no, absolutely not.
Um, and Jim, it's funny because we talk about how hard Philly fans are, and we forget that Jim is from this area. He's played, locally and stuff. One of the first things he said in his press conference after the Miami game was, "I'm sorry to the fans. We should be better for our fans."
Yeah,
So here's his chance to redeem himself. You
absolutely.
you come out of next Wednesday with 6 points in 2 games. Right now, you're sitting at 30 points, and you're right back at the top of the table.
Yeah.
So for Chicago, we've seen them twice already this year. What do you want to see the Union do better the third time around? What do you worry the most about Chicago the third time
Um,
around?
I think they need to be better defensively, especially from
Okay.
set pieces. Union, obviously, they kept a clean sheet in the first game, but that was when they were at their peak sort of defensively. They hadn't conceded a goal on the road at that point. But the last time playing Chicago, they were awful at defending set pieces. I think wasn't it the one where Flack would just let his guy run into the
Yes.
box and not? Yeah, they have to be better at defending set pieces. They cannot let Chicago pretty much essentially. They can't essentially hand Chicago 3 goals. They need to be so much better defensively set pieces. Set pieces.
So one of the questions I had on my agenda for today was defensive substitution. Do you put Finley in again against Chicago? Because we both agreed that during that 3-3 debacle of whatever that we wouldn't call that match,
Yeah.
he was probably one of the best players on the pitch. Do you go back to Finley for this game, or do you kind of just
Um,
try to get that starting four back in front of Andre?
I think it's a weird one. I think the Union might opt to go for perhaps a stronger back line in this game because don't forget they've got 3 games in 7 days. They go
Yes.
from playing Chicago this Sunday, and then next Sunday they got New England.
Yep.
So I mean, so they might end up using the Toronto game to mix the team up to then go to New England at full strength.
So you think if they're going to make a sub on defense, it's going to be Wednesday rather than
I think if they're going to make wholesale changes, it'll be Wednesday as opposed to Sunday.
Sunday night? Yeah, I mean that's very possible. The lineup now is trickier to figure out because you have the issues with Bedoya. I do think he sits one of these games because you alluded to. I'd rather have him sit against one of these opponents than New England if Jim is going to do that. If he's going to pick, I would rather kind of keep some of a familiarity with New England. So, what do you think's the lineup this week? Do you think we see Miro at the 8 again, which is where he should be, or what do you think on a lineup?
I think obviously Blake hopefully back and goal, and you have the usual back four from Bizo, Glasnes, Elliott, and Wagner.
Yes.
Then I think Martinez will probably start in the holding role with it's a difficult one. I think very very much a difficult one. I think I want to see McGlynn and Sullivan start, but I don't think he'll start. I don't think he'll start McGlynn. So I think it'll be Martinez, Montero, Flark, Sullivan, Santos or Burke, and Shabirka.
So then where do you put Miro if that's the case?
Oh yeah, Miro at the 8.
So then who's going to play the 10?
Sullivan.
Okay, so then Sullivan. So you're saying you put Martinez or Bedoya would be, and you put Flock.
I put Martinez in the 6, Flark and Montero at the 8, and then Sullivan at 10.
I'm fine with that. I like that lineup. I mean, I know I was listening to Zach and them talking to Dupe on the River Pod, and they were saying, it's enough with Miro at the 10. Please, for the love of God, stop putting him up there. He just doesn't. He doesn't. I guess either he hold on to the ball too long, or he just doesn't have the vision to help the forwards out. He fits better in the 8, where he can kind of be further back on the pitch. He can see the field better, and it seems like he's more natural coming out of that role. And we saw that last year with Aronson up at the 10 and the way they worked well. So I agree. I kind of wish we would see Flock at the 6 a bit more too. I know Martinez is that's really where he kind of has to be. But if you're going to get rid of Bedoya, maybe change things up. Maybe try Martinez on the right side. Maybe just put Sullivan there and bench Martinez and have Martinez come in as a sub. I wouldn't exactly be opposed to that either. I think as good as Martinez is, and he has been solid at times, he does make some stupid mistakes. One of which is taking these 35-yard shots that are just I don't understand it. Like I don't know if he thinks he's going to make it. I don't know if he's just trying to get to the goal, maybe cause some havoc. I don't know what he's trying to do, but he needs to stop shooting from that far out because he just kills your momentum when you go forward. And then Martinez is taking a field goal kick, and it's like, well, thanks for nothing, Jose. But if you could give a score prediction here, what are you happy with? What's your all over happy outcome here?
Just a win. I don't really care how it gets done. Just win the game. I mean, obviously, people have been moaning, criticising and going, oh, they keep tying, they can't win. Just win. Just shut the critics up. Just go there, win. Doesn't matter if it's 1-0, 7-0, 8-2. Just win the game. Just go there, win the game, and then turn your focus to Toronto in another game which you should be winning.
Yeah, so let's segue to Toronto now. Let's go to the Toronto preview now. A lot of this is kind of going to depend on what we see from Chicago. So that's kind of the unfortunate part of predicting or reviewing 2 games that haven't happened yet. If the way you said goes the way it goes, there's no defensive change, then maybe Toronto, you start to see some defensive movement prior to the New England game. But I'm kind of worried about them. We saw the same issue we had against the Red Bulls. When we played against the Red Bulls, they had been coming into that game very hot.
Yeah.
Toronto's the same exact way. What are your thoughts on the Toronto match? Just knowing that they're coming to town.
It'd be an interesting one to see how Jim approaches the game. Because, I mean, obviously, we saw it I should have mentioned this earlier. I don't want to look ahead to New England. But we saw it early in the season where, before the CCL games, he made changes. So against New York, we obviously saw Findlay, we saw Matt Real play, we saw these different players play. So I don't know if he'll treat that New England game like the NYCFC game where he makes wholesale changes there. Plays players like Finley, swaps the strikers around,
Oh
moves
yes, I
the
didn't think
midfield
about
around.
that.
Because he might end up focusing on the CCL more and be like, oh, we don't lose Casper, we don't lose Elliot, we don't lose Martinez. So, I mean, that's potentially going to play his mind. We'll obviously find out
So
come Wednesday.
let me ask you a question then. So let's say Sunday and Wednesday go perfectly. We get 6 points between those two games.
Yeah.
Do you treat New England a little bit more casual because now you're like, well, I have a CCL game in a few days, or do you try to earn a point like a normal MLS game? I mean, we saw it early on. They sacrificed an MLS match for the CCL. How do you think they get 6 points? Do you think they go into the same mentality? Or they just like, hey, let's just try to steal a point and get the hell out of here?
I mean, obviously, it depends how keen they are to try and win the Supporters' Cup. I mean, obviously, 9 points behind New England right now. Do they look at it as a realistic target they can catch and then also focus on the CCL? Or is Jim Curtin going to look at us and go, as long as we're in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. As long as we're there in the lottery of the playoffs, it doesn't matter. We'll put our eggs in. We'll put our eggs into the CCL still and try and win that. That's
So if
the
you
interesting.
if you do get 6 points, you are likely to put yourselves within 3 to 5 points of New England. So it's like now we are kind of like right at their doorstep to possibly leap into the first spot again.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at this from a realistic standpoint, unless New England collapses, most of the teams are going to kind of be battling for second, third, or fourth. Ideally, all you want to do is be above Nashville. So that way, if you do ever have to play them, it's coming here. So really, our focus has to be that second spot for now. So I agree with you. I think it's so much speculation. I hate speculating too much on what a team's going to do because you don't want to say, well, they don't want to win this New England game. Of course, they want to win. Everybody wants to freaking win,
but have their eyes on the bigger prize.
Yes, I will sacrifice the next 2 MLS Cups if that means we win the CONCACAF Champions League this year.
Yeah.
That's how important it is to this franchise. That's how important it is to this team and to just soccer as a whole.
Yeah.
If you have the Union, an MLS team, winning the CONCACAF Champions League, the league gets notoriety. Everything kind of falls into place.
Yeah.
If an MLS team can go out there and get it. So I agree. It's exciting.
Also, it's also bigger from a perspective as well that you get to go play the Club World Cup.
Yeah, that's true.
So you end up going to play. The Union could potentially end up playing Chelsea.
Can you imagine? Just wait. If the Union played Chelsea, what would you think the reception in England would be about the Union coming to play that level of a team?
I mean, obviously, it's really weird. The Champions League the Club World Cup is really weird because it's usually played like Japan or somewhere in Asia. So, I mean, it'll be an interesting one. Obviously, the game will probably be broadcasted if they did. It'd probably be a bit of a smug thing. Chelsea fans might look at it. Obviously, I'm not calling Chelsea fans out, but like some fans will look at it and go, "Oh, it's just a nobody MLS team. We'll be fine. It's not LAFC. It's not one of the New Yorks." I mean, people probably don't identify the Union. I mean, this is no disrespect to the Union for me, but people in the UK perhaps don't look at the Union in the same way they look at LA Galaxy, New York Red Bulls, NYCFC, LAFC, those sort of teams. Not because obviously the Union aren't better, because I mean, the Union are probably better than most of those teams. It's because they haven't got the same global outreach of those teams because they're not. The Union obviously aren't is a big market like LA, New York, Miami.
And look at the names on the team too. I mean, there's no Vela, there's no anyone there's no Nani from Orlando. There's no superstar on this team that's world renowned. You have Andre Blake is probably maybe Andre's the most famous Union player we have on the roster, and most people from the Eastern Hemisphere have no idea who Andre Blake is unless they follow the MLS.
And I think as well, you look at like teams like NYCFC, they've had Frank Lampard. So people have looked at NYCFC in the UK because of Frank Lampard. LA Galaxy had Steven Gerrard and David Beckham. New York Red Bulls had Thierry Henry, who was obviously a massive player in England as well. So these are the sort of teams that people might look at and go, oh, these guys had these sort of players. But I mean, it'd be good for the Union to somewhat show the UK and the rest of the world what they can do if they can get into the Club World Cup.
It's kind of hard to imagine. I mean, for us, we were always so happy that they just made the Open Cup every year and they advanced in the Open Cup. We're like, oh, okay, we can at least do something to earn a trophy. And now, if you told me 5 years ago, hey, Mike, the Union might play Chelsea one day, I'm like, yeah, you must be nuts or drunk or something,
Yeah.
because that's never going to happen. So it's
Oh, with a
amazing.
friendly, yeah.
Yeah, or in a friendly, right? So it's amazing, like from my perspective. See, I've been a Union fan for 8 years now. So for me,
Yeah.
it's like to hear these things kind of possibly being right around the corner for us is super exciting. And it's just a lot to look forward to. But
Absolutely.
any other thoughts on the Toronto preview? I mean, I know that's kind of like far away. We're not really worried about
Absolutely.
it yet.
We sort of went off on a big sort of like segue there. We sort of moved really away from
We
the
we
Toronto
went
game.
we said screw Toronto. We're going to talk about something
Yeah.
else.
I mean, obviously,
But go ahead.
you'll be at the game. You'll be at the game.
Yes,
How are
yes,
you looking
yes,
forward
yes.
to it?
Yeah, I will be looking forward to it. So, I mean, we didn't really talk about the DC game much because we had been talking about Orlando on the last episode.
Yeah.
The environment on that Saturday was absolutely nuts. So it's a
Yeah.
shame that Toronto won't have that because it's a Wednesday compared to a Saturday.
Yeah.
But I'll be in the press box on Wednesday night. I'm excited. I love going there as always, and hopefully, we can win. So far that I've been in the press box, we have not lost the game.
Hey,
So
lucky omen.
knock on wood. There you go.
Fingers
Um,
crossed. Fingers crossed. There's no weather tonight.
I just jinx myself. So at this point, they're gonna lose
Yeah.
6-0.
And the game will be delayed for like 3 hours. That
3 hours. Right? I want to get home at
Sounds
2 o'clock in the
exhausting.
morning. All right. Well, I mean, I think that covers everything. It's kind of a lot to look forward to. And then so
Yeah.
Sunday night, the Union play at 6 o'clock against Chicago. Wednesday night, the game is at 7:30, I believe. So that would be Wednesday night 7:30. So a lot to look forward to. But let's wrap up the show. Obviously we have to get paid. We have some amazing sponsors that contribute to All About the Birds. First up is Manscaped. Want to get the man of your life the perfect gift? Well, get him the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the Lawnmower 4.0. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code AllaboutTheBirds, or I'm sorry, AATBirds at manscaped.com. Imagine surprising your man with a sleek, well-designed, and optimized body hair trimmer that says your balls will thank you. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code AATBirds. Up next, we have OddsJam, which is the #1 software platform for Sportsbook Bandits. Their software shows you how to make a risk-free cash-off FanDuel, DraftKings, and other books with the arbitrage calculator. Never lose a bet again. Sign up today at oddsjam.com via All About the Birds. Right there below is a link. Next, we have Statement Game, which is an awesome, cool sponsor that we have. Check out Statement Games Incorporated for a fun new way to fantasy sports and entertainment. Win gift cards and prizes, and it's free to sign up. $0, absolutely free. Sign up at statementgames.com. Following that is 99jerseys.com. Get 20% off your next order by using discount code AATBirds20. Check out their wide selection of quality kick-ass jerseys of your favorite sports movie characters and throwback jerseys of some of your favorite stars. We always talk about how Chip wears them, and they look awesome. Again, order today at 99jerseys.com. Save 20% off by using discount code AATBirds. And last but not least, we have us at the All About the Birds shop, where you can get all the network gear. We have the Across the Pitch shirt. We have this new shirt that Johnny putting out. There's the Across the Pitch shirt right there.
Yeah.
This one right here, I love.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm gonna do a little teaser here. I think I'm gonna get the bell tattooed on me, just like
I
the
like
bell,
that.
and then kind of mix it with. I've been working on a Union tattoo idea for a little while now.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do a show about it and we can
Ooh.
live stream it. So we get those gear on the shop, and then follow us on social media as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're always online. Me and Dave are on Twitter all the time. So please subscribe, follow us. If you miss anything, go ahead and rewatch our shows. Apple Podcasts as well. I listen to our show every night on Apple Podcasts to make sure we don't sound stupid, and most of the time we sound okay. So it's a good way to go. Listen to Dave Miller again. Dave GFC Miller for him. He will be covering the match on Sunday. I will be covering the match on Wednesday. M Barrera 1323, and then our producer Mike Devlin, Mike Devlin 12. He does awesome stuff. He put an article a couple days ago, which was a great read. So please give him a follow as well. Dave, it was a pleasure talking to you again. As always, we have 2 fun games ahead of us. Hopefully, we get 6 points. I will talk to you soon, man.
Talk to you soon, man.
Go Union.
Go Union. Doop.
Doop.
The Olympics, Euros, Baseball, major championships, and concerts are all in this summer. You know what isn't? A wild and hairy bush. Tame your pubes with help from our friends at Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Their 4th-generation performance package includes the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. If an athlete treats their body like royalty, why not treat your pubes like Olympic gold? Fellas, do right by your balls and join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com with the code AATBirds. The world is starting to open, and the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped is here to help you get ready. Inside, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, plus 2 free gifts, Performance Boxer Briefs, and the Shed travel bag. Talk about a world-class dismount into a post-quarantine world. This package is the perfect package for your package and peak performance in whatever sport you desire. The brand new Lawnmower 4.0 is here to take the podium. This 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to help reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multi-function on-off switch can engage a travel lock, and gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed a more precise shave. Did I mention this trimmer is waterproof too? Michael Phelps is drooling just thinking about the possibilities. This package also comes with the Weed Whacker to chop your worst weeds up top in both your nose and ear. This tool is a lock to take home gold in the biathlon. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual-blade system. This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. After trimming your pubes, show them some sportsmanship with Manscaped's liquid formulations. The Crop Preserver ball deodorant and Crop Reviver ball toner are the key to feeling victorious this year. Manscaped also threw in 2 free gifts in their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code AATBirds at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code AATBirds at manscaped.com. Achieve pubic glory this year with Manscaped.